that can help optimize your project's total value, like our comprehensive electronic solutions for security, AV, wireless, and networking, or our specialized job site services, like material staging and kitting, or maybe our logistics specialists, who can help you identify efficiencies and ensure just-in-time delivery. So, consider what one more thing you may need to optimize your bottom line and get to know us for that. Yep, Graybar does that.
This is the Verizon Extra Innings Show. Verizon, the most reliable 5G in St. Louis.
Tough night for the Cardinals. They lose in Pittsburgh by a 7-0 score. Welcome into the Extra Innings Show here on KMOX. The Extra Innings Show being presented by Graybar. Graybar is your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. My name is Matt Pauley. Multiple ways to get connected to the program if you would like. You can call or text 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. You can also tweet at me at Matt Pauley on air, MattPauley on air. And for those of you who are watching on our video stream, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you can leave a comment in the chat, and that will come to me, and I will see that, and we can address that as we go along. So the Cardinals lose tonight. Not a great game. They fall by a 7-0 score. Offensively, just very, very little, as they only have 4 hits and they never get a runner past first base. Eric Fedde wasn't good. Second straight game for him where he was really not good. He had been having a pretty solid June in terms of his actual numbers. We talked about that a little bit on the network post-game, the difference between kind of the baseball card numbers and some of the expected numbers. The expected numbers for him have not been good, but the actual numbers were good up until a couple starts ago, and it has started to go in the wrong direction now for Fedde. Honestly, there was some luck involved in him maybe even getting out of the first inning, because he gets that double play off the bat of Nick Gonzalez, which was huge. That was a really hard hit ball from Gonzalez, and if that goes through for another hit, who knows what that first inning turns into. You give Fedde the credit that he went through the second, the third, and the fourth, and did not give up any runs in those innings. In fact, he did not give up any hits in those innings. But then it kind of folded for him, did for him there in the fifth inning, and it got bad, and it got bad really, really quickly, where he gave up 6 runs on 7 hits, and all of a sudden the Cardinals were down 7-0, and that ends up being the final score of the game. So there's really 2 distinct things that happened in this game. Fedde wasn't good, and the Cardinals didn't do much of anything from an offensive standpoint, facing off against a lefty in Andrew Heaney. And if you've listened to me and Kevin Wheeler, for that matter, because we do Redbird Rush Hour together, we've talked about this a little bit lately. When the Cardinals struggle against high-end lefties, when they struggle against Shota Imanaga, Matthew Boyd, Andrew Abbott, you kind of accept that as, okay, this team isn't great against lefties, and those are really, really good left-handers. And then they did face off against a lefty in Allen with Cleveland, and they had success against him. And to me, that was a really important thing and was a good step forward for this team. I'm not trying to take a shot here at Andrew Heaney. It's going to sound that way. It's not what I'm attempting to do. But Andrew Heaney's not Shota Imanaga. He's not Andrew Abbott. He's not Matthew Boyd. He had given up 7 runs in each of his last 2 starts. Even with the 6 2/3 scoreless innings today, he still has a June ERA of 5.57. So it's a little bit more concerning when the Cardinals struggle against like pedestrian left-handers. That sounds so bad. I'm not trying to take a shot at Heaney. By the way, to his credit, he had a 2.61 ERA in the month of April. He started out the season really, really good, and he's had some good moments. He had some good moments with the Rangers. He's bounced around a whole lot in his career. But the recent trend on Heaney wasn't especially good, and he was really good tonight against the Cardinals. So it does start to present that question again about the Cardinals' ability to handle left-handers. You know, I don't know what to do about Eric Fedde. I think if you listen to me a lot, and one of the areas where I end up being in disagreement a lot with listeners is I am it takes me a while to like want to make a change. I'm more patient than a lot of people because I've just always thought like over 162 games, you have to be patient. If you're making knee-jerk reactions, well then a lot of times you're not giving something time to kind of play out and to come back around. So I've always been like, so when it comes to, for example, when it comes to starting pitchers who are really struggling, especially if they have some sort of track record there, I've always been of the belief that I'm giving them 3 starts of being really not very good before I start to think about making a change. That's, to me, that's letting it play out a little bit. You have one bad start, and that starts to raise the red flag a little bit. You have a second bad start, and then all of a sudden you're really looking at something, and it's the next start after that where it's kind of the make or break moment. And like Andre Palante was at that point just a few weeks ago where he had back-to-back not-so-good starts, and I thought we were moving towards this third start where I was watching that one to see what it was going to look like, and turned out it was pretty good. So he, kind of that was the respite, or that was the the reset button, whatever you want to call it. With Fetty, it's been really not good. It's been really, really not good here for the last 2 starts. And I'm not saying you don't give him the start in 5 days. And I thought it was really, really interesting what Oliver Marmol had to say during postgame. I know people get upset at games and like they don't want to, reason isn't the thing that they want to be thinking of at that moment. But I would encourage you, especially on games like this, listen to the manager and listen to what he has to say. Because when he was and like sometimes anger takes over. I get it. But instead of being angry for a moment, listen into what the manager says. Because I listened to Dolly tonight, and he did say that we'll take a look at it when talking about Fetty and where he's at. We'll take a look at it is one of his taglines for nothing is guaranteed moving forward. But at the same time, he had said they just talked with Dusty Blake, and that there's clearly some things that they feel like they can fix with Fetty. So if there's some things that you can fix with Fetty, and you feel very confident that they are fixable, well, then you probably want to give them another chance to see whether or not you can fix them. And they have to be, like, that's the ultimatum. They have to be fixed. Ali said a couple times in his post-game press conference about how Fetty's hitting, pitching, what was it? What did he say? Hip high or knee high? Whatever it was. Like, basically saying location was bad. And it was. Location was bad today for Fetty. He was not using all sides of the play. I thought there was actually something really interesting said tonight during the broadcast with John and Ricky, because and I hadn't thought about this, and I'm still thinking through it. I don't even completely know how I feel about it at the moment, but I thought it was something that was really interesting and worth considering. When Fetty was really good earlier this year, you know what he was doing a lot more of? He was walking dudes. And you don't like I am not a proponent of walks. That's not what I'm saying. But if he put up better numbers when he's walking guys, well, then let's dig into that a little bit. And it is what's happening is that before he was being really intricate on the outside portions of the zone, so much so that he was throwing a lot more non-strikes and walking guys, but that when he didn't walk guys weren't making contact off of him. Guys weren't making hard contact off of him. To me, that's a really interesting thing to think through, because he's catching a lot of plate right now. We talked about with Miles Michaelis. Michaelis had to throw less strikes. Maybe Fetty needs to throw less strikes. Maybe you just accept the walks from Fetty and know that when he's not walking someone, there's a good chance that he's going to be just touching the outside of the zone and getting strikes that way. So I thought that was a really interesting point that was brought up on the broadcast tonight, and it certainly got me thinking about a few things. The other thing that's just flashing right in front of us right now is the lack of starting pitching depth that the Cardinals have. If tomorrow morning Oliver Marmol and John Mozeliak and Chaim Bloom and everybody else who's making the decision, I don't know how much Chaim's going to have on a decision like this because it's a right now big league team decision, but whatever the brain trust is, whoever is involved in these decisions, if they wake up tomorrow and they say, you know what, it just doesn't make sense to have Eric Fedde, and it just doesn't make sense to have Miles Michaelis in the rotation anymore. Well, then what's the answer? Well, we know one part of the answer would be bringing Michael McGreevy back. Eventually, he's got to stay down for a little while before they can do that. But from a rest of the season standpoint, that's an option. Is bringing Steven Matz back out of the bullpen an option as well? I guess it is. But at that point, you are really going to put your bullpen in a tough spot because he's been so good. And then what happens when you have a starting pitching injury, which is very likely to happen at some point this year? Quinn Matthews isn't ready. He still needs some work at AAA. There's been some guys down there who have had moderate success, but there's nobody sitting at AAA that you feel really, really comfortable with. That's part of this position that the Cardinals find themselves in right now, that the lack of starting pitching depth has forced them to use a starting rotation that's probably not their best starting rotation. I think we can all agree that Michael McGreevy is if Michael McGreevy was here right now, I don't think we would view him as the sixth best starter in the rotation, right? So you've got a guy that you're leaving at AAA despite the fact that he's probably better than some guys who are currently in your rotation, and you're doing that because of kind of the desperate position that you're in terms of just not having any starting pitching depth, and you don't have the option with the guys who have been struggling lately, like a Fedde and a Michaelis, to put them off to the side. So it's a really tough spot, and I hope that's not a criticism at all. If I'm running the Cardinals, I'm probably doing the exact same thing, although the questions start to get a little bit more interesting at this point. But it's, as I've said before, man, if in a hypothetical world, you just say, done with Michaelis, done with Fedde, they're gone. You're going to run with Michael McGreevy. You're going to bring Steven Matz out of the bullpen and put him back in the rotation. Those two guys are going to join Sonny Gray, Matthew Liberatore, and Andre Palante, and that's going to be your new starting rotation. Well, the moment you have an injury, you're stuck with somebody coming up that it could sink you at that point. And Verla sends in a message, and I have had my eye on this guy. Curtis Taylor has been solid at Memphis for most of the year, 10 strikeouts the other night. At some point in time, a guy who is performing at Memphis probably deserves an opportunity. I'm not trying to be dismissive of what he's done, and we certainly have seen the Cardinals many, many times give non-high-level prospects, guys that you haven't really heard a whole lot about, give them opportunities at the major league level. But at the same time, nobody's clamoring for Taylor to get up here. And his numbers, and the commenter's right. The numbers, 18 games this year from Memphis, 11 starts, 4-2, 3.12 ERA. Strikeout numbers are okay, 61 strikeouts and 69 in the third innings. Batting average against 211 at AAA. His whip is 113. So, I mean, I'm not being dismissive of who he is. I'm just saying that he's not really somebody that we've talked a lot about that could come up. But he's, to Verla's point, yeah, that is one guy who has done something at Memphis. And if you decide to go down this path where you want to make some changes in the rotation, could you look at that person as being a little bit of starting pitching depth, especially if you view it as they're going to be at Memphis, and if you run into an emergency situation, there's somebody who can use? I guess I can be coaxed into believing that. You can join us if you want to at 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. That's how you call. That's how you text. You can tweet at me as well, at Matt Pauley on air. We'll take a break. Have more in just a moment right here on KMOX.
There's a big red barn where you save green. Norm's Bargain Barn. On discount windows, doors, and things. Norm's Bargain Barn.
Hi, I'm Norm Wilkie. Come see my new selection of Amish cabinetry made by my good Amish friends at Countrywood Products. We now stock 5 styles of cabinetry for you to choose from.
When you need to save on discount windows, doors, and cabinetry, come to Norm's Bargain Barn. With locations in Shiloh and Fenton at the bottom of Gravois Bluffs. Visit normsbargainbarn.com.
That's normsbargainbarn.com.
At Sandberg Phoenix, we are more than just a law firm. Our attorneys are committed to you, your business, and your community. From startups to established businesses to estate plans, we are ready to serve you in the areas of business litigation, intellectual property, health law, and products liability. With offices in Missouri and Illinois, you can conveniently visit us today at sandbergphoenix.com. That's sandbergphoenix.com. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
Cash for Clunkers is back. Overhead Door Company of St. Louis is paying cash for your clunkers now. They'll haul away your old garage door and give you instant credit towards a new insulated door. $200 for the first garage door and $100 for each additional door. Cash in your old entry door too. It's Cash for Clunkers now at Overhead Door Company of St. Louis. Convenient, free, in-home estimates. Schedule online at overheaddoorsstlouis.com or call 314-781-5200.
You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Now, back to the Verizon Extra Innings Show.
Back at it as we do start to wrap up this edition of the Extra Innings Show after the Cardinals lose today to the Pirates by a 7-0 score. The Extra Innings Show is presented by Gray Bar. Gray Bar is your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. Texter from the 314 says, Matt, while Cardinals pitching isn't worth a darn, why do they keep throwing out these no names? You can't compete with these minor league pitchers. Like, that's not fair. You know, Eric Fetty is a guy who's got a track record in the big leagues and was really good last year with the White Sox and not bad with the Cardinals and started out okay this year. You know, Miles Michaelis has been an all-star. So it's hard to respond to messages like that. They're guys who are not performing right now. I'm not running away from that at all. They're not performing right now, and they're not performing recently. And as this team plays really good baseball in other areas, it can be it can be a struggle to watch them because it feels like, especially you're facing off against Pittsburgh. But by the way, if you're not paying attention, Pittsburgh's playing a lot better baseball here recently since they made their managerial change. They're 17-9 at home since the managerial change. So the Cardinals are certainly not the only team that's lost to them in Pittsburgh, but it still feels like a series you should have some success against. What's on Deck is sponsored by Chesterfield Fence and Deck, the sign you have the very best, ChesterfieldFence.com. Game number 2 of the series tomorrow. The Cardinals will be sending Andre Palante to the mound, 5-3. Paul Skeens goes for the Pirates, 4-7. A 5:40 first pitch. That means our coverage will once again begin at 4:45. Thanks for being tuned in to Cardinals baseball tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the home of the Cardinals, 104.1 FM, KMOX.